All right, welcome back to Top Story on RFX. This is where we take a look at news headlines and see just how ridiculous they are. Okay, first headline. It looks like the main headline, the one that has the nice picture on it, is called "Britain Tries to Swab All of Liverpool in Pilot of Mass Coronavirus Testing." And the picture is somewhat comical of a bunch of soldiers lined up wearing face masks and face shields and wearing aprons. It looks like, I mean, they literally have. I don't know what would an apron do. Like, I get it if you got like a full smock, you know. What exactly would an apron that covers like your chest and groin do? As opposed to, I mean, they got the gloves, they got the face mask and everything, but then several of these soldiers have an apron on. To the best of my understanding, the apron protects against spaghetti sauce from, spilling on your shirt when you're making pasta. I don't know what that would have to do with coronavirus. Now, the subheadline is some public health officials question the effectiveness and the expense. There's things I could say about this one. When they say try to swab all of Liverpool, I guess that means to try to test every single person in Liverpool for coronavirus. The problem, it depends on what the travel restrictions are inside of Great Britain. Maybe if you live in Liverpool, you can't leave and nobody can come in. I don't know how that would be enforced. They actually have roadblocks, as if you're living in like occupied territory and every single road in and out has got like a military checkpoint. And, it's literally like the movie Outbreak, where you just like totally cordon off a town and you've got the military and Humvees and stuff, and like you can't get in and out. And if you try to like escape or you try to get in, some guy's going to shoot you like a prison. I doubt that's the situation in Liverpool. I'm just going to say I'm pretty sure that that's not what's happening in Liverpool. So, if you then test every single person in Liverpool, which according to the subheadline is apparently fairly expensive, what good does that do you? That's what I'd like to know, because if you test everybody in Liverpool and then next week, and then one person who lives in Liverpool, they then, drive to London and then come back a day later and they catch coronavirus and bring it back in. Like, the test is only good for like that day that you test the person. So like if they go somewhere else or they get exposed to somebody somewhere who has it, like, and let's say I doubt you can test every single person in Liverpool on day one. It probably takes several days straight. So let's say you test one guy, you test Jack on day one, and he doesn't have coronavirus. But one of the people that's not going to get tested for, like, say a couple days from now, maybe he does have coronavirus, and he hangs out with Jack for an hour right after Jack gets tested, and now Jack has it, and so you think that Jack doesn't have it, but now Jack does have it, even though he just got tested. And, you could go on and on about how this doesn't make any sense. Jack could leave Liverpool and come back. Somebody else from London could then come to Liverpool, give Jack the virus the day he got the test. The day, like 5 minutes after he got the test, some guy traveling from London or just in Liverpool who hasn't gotten the test yet then comes out and hangs out with Jack or walks past Jack and he breathes the guy's air or whatever the fuck he does, and suddenly Jack could contract the coronavirus 5 fucking seconds after he gets the test. So what value is it to test every single fucking guy in Liverpool at whatever expense that costs with all these soldiers wearing their aprons? I don't know what it would be. Now, presumably, the article says that some public health officials question the effectiveness and the expense. So at least it looks like the author, Carla Adam, is going to look at some sort of critical view of this policy of testing every single person in Liverpool, even though, as far as I can tell, and it's not like I'm a fucking epidemiologist, what the fuck do I know? But it just sounds like common sense that this makes no fucking sense. But hey, what do I know? Maybe I'm wrong about something. I easily could be. I've been wrong about many things in the past, once or twice. Moving on to the next headline on the Washington Post. In a scathing opinion, appeals court rejects Trump request to block Pennsylvania certification. The subheadline is the Trump campaign said it would take the case to the Supreme Court, where legal experts have said it has little chance of success. Now, this is one of my favorite things. This has been going on ever since the election, and Trump has been contesting the election results, vowing to take things to court. This is one of the things that I've always found interesting. Every mainstream media source, whether you're watching NBC, CNN, you're reading the Washington Post, New York Times, Huffington Post, whatever it is, every single time they refer to Trump's legal challenges of the election results, they always qualify it with words like baseless, just patently false, or whatever else. So they're like, President Trump's patently false and absolutely ridiculous, baseless, fucked up, terrible fucking allegations of, that's how they always refer to it. And you're like, well, wait a minute. There's a legal process that's currently underway. Like, if that's the case, if Trump's claims are baseless, well, then that will be revealed in court. If his lawyers can't provide sufficient evidence, then it will get knocked down, and that's fine. But the fact is that the Washington Post, the writer at the Washington Post, or the writer at the New York Times, or the anchor at CNN or MSNBC, they don't know this for sure yet. They're just referring to it that way out of essentially contempt. So it's like, why do you have the word scathing? In a scathing opinion, appeals court rejects Trump request. I mean, what's the scathing? What you don't need that. I mean, first of all, like in the old school days of journalism, any old school editor would have crossed out the word scathing in a big red pen with disgust because you're editorializing. There's no reason to have scathing in there. It's just stupid. But in today's, the way it works today, obviously they don't do that anymore. And then in the sub-headline, this is just the last thing I'll mention about this. It says, where legal, where Trump, said he'd take the case to the Supreme Court, and then it says, where legal experts have said it has little chance of success. This is one of the things you see in the news all the time, where they just sort of refer to sort of anonymous, in general, legal experts. Well, which legal experts? You can find a lawyer who's going to be willing to say anything. Right? You can find a lawyer that says, well, maybe it does have a chance of success. You could also find a lawyer that says, well, it doesn't have a chance of success. Did they poll lawyers to say like, well, we did an exhaustive poll of 1,000 different lawyers and we found that on average, most of them didn't think that it had much chance of success? I highly, highly doubt that. They just said this because they just sort of assume it to be true. And hey, it might be true. It probably is true that most lawyers and most legal experts would think that Trump's, appeals to the Supreme Court have little chance of success. That may very well be true. But as the writer of this piece, you don't know that. You don't know that. You're just saying, well, some legal expert. See, a more accurate way to say this would see, instead of saying where legal experts have said, you would say where some legal experts have said. But you don't do that because it makes it sound like there's another side to this coin where there could be legal experts that say, well, maybe he does have a chance of success. But the point is, neither this reporter or these so-called legal experts, none of them have probably seen all the evidence that the Trump legal team has amassed so far, because as far as I know, they haven't revealed it to anybody yet. Now, that's either because they don't have it or because they're waiting till the right moment or whatever it is. But, as part of a strategy, for example. But the point is that none of these people actually know what the facts of the case are, and yet they're stating their opinions as fact when they are anything but. So let's move on to the next headline. The next one is Republicans lob accusations of elitism at middle-class Joe, in quotes, a sign of the upended politics of populism. The dynamic underscores how Trumpism is likely to animate the nation's politics after I can't read. This is one of my problems. My inability to read out loud is on full display right here. Let's start from the top. Republicans lob accusations of elitism at middle-class Joe, a sign of upended politics. Maybe it could be that this is just a fucking clunky and awkward fucking headline. Because usually a headline is like a few words that kind of grabs your attention. Anyway, so Republicans lob accusations of elitism at middle-class Joe, a sign of the upended politics of populism. I gotta admit, I'm not fully understanding what they mean by this. The upended politics of populism? Does that mean that the politics of populism are over? Because claims of elitism at middle class Joe, that would sound like a populist thing to do. And I don't. Well, anyway, let's read the subheadline, see if I can clarify this at all. Because unfortunately, I can't read the actual piece because God knows that the piece by Toulouse Olorunipa, that's the name. Toulouse Olorunipa. Is that Greek? I mean, fucking Christ, I have no idea what kind of name that is. Anyway, the dynamic underscores how Trumpism is likely to animate the nation's politics after the president is replaced by Joe Biden. So I guess that means that populism is here to stay, a sign of the upended politics of populism. I mean, forgive me if upended means like turned upside down. That means like I don't. You know what we're gonna do here? We're gonna go to dictionary.com and we're gonna type in upended and see if this fucking guy is using it the wrong way or if I'm just a complete fucking moron. It's really a 50-50, probably even 40-60 toss-up at the moment with me being the fucking moron. So let's see. To upend means to set on end as a barrel or ship. Well, that's definitely not the one we're going for. To affect drastically or radically as tastes, opinions, reputations, or systems. And then 3, to defeat in competition as in boxing or business. So technically, if you were to look at this this headline here, you could say a sign of the, let's substitute defeated politics of populism, and then that wouldn't make any sense based on the subheadline. Or if you said the drastically altered politics of populism, but that doesn't really make sense either, because that means that populist techniques of politics have been drastically changed or defeated. So in either case, I don't think the word upended makes any fucking sense whatsoever in this headline. This has got to be one of the clunkiest headlines I've ever read that also doesn't make any sense. So Toulouse Olorunipa, I'm gonna click on this fuck-ass's name. Let's take a look at this guy. What's his deal here? Yeah, he went to Stanford? Jesus Christ. So Toulouse Olorunipa, he's got a hell of an education, but look, I'm a fucking moron. This guy went to Stanford. He's a White House reporter for the Washington Post. He should be fucking 100,000 times smarter than I am. And yet I gotta admit, I'm pretty sure he did not use the word upended politics correctly, or if he did, it's incredibly clunky and unclear what the fuck he's talking about. But hey, okay, on to the next fucking headline. Next headline, this one deserves a picture. It says, for female economists, Yellen's Treasury Secretary nomination marks another inspiring first, and it is by Rachel Siegal. See, I want to say Seagal, like Steven Seagal, but it's spelled S-I-E-G-E-L. So is it like Seagal? Seagal? It's like Seagull. Rachel Seagal. Fuck, man, I don't know. So, I gotta say, headlines like this make me so upset that it's almost like I'm incapable of commenting on it. Because entering, like, the gender politics thing into something like this, like, Yellen's Treasury Secretary marks another inspiring first for women. I'm gonna skip it, because I tend to get too upset with things like this. Well, I'll just say one quick thing. One quick fucking thing. Okay, here's the thing about gender politics. Let's say, like, there's no mention of, like, what her policies are, right? There's no mention of, like, you know, who she is as a person, what she believes in, you know, how successful was her tenure at the Fed. And also, I mean, look, I could go into the conspiracy theories about the Fed all day long, and I understand a lot of people wouldn't believe that stuff, even though a lot of it is actually 100% true. But nevertheless, you know, here's this person who was a Fed chairman, and now she's going to be Treasury Secretary, and those are two positions that really lie at the heart of one of the things that's most wrong with America, which of course is Wall Street. Just, you know, research anything you want about how the Fed actually works, or what the Treasury's role within that system is, and how money creation works, and how it's a silent tax, and blah 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 blah. You can look all that stuff up yourself if you like. And this is a woman who is sort of apparently neck deep in the red hot center of this fucking nexus of fucking evil at the heart of America's country. But what we care about is that she's a woman, you know? And you're like, my fucking God. Like, it seems to me that, like, in the old days, if you were a leftist, right, which I was, when I was younger in college, most people when they're young and in college and have sort of an anti-establishment bent to them, they are, on the left in some way. It used to be about sort of haves and have-nots, right? Haves and have-nots, right? It was about, like, the super rich versus the super poor, and the way that the super rich sort of game the system to make the poor even poorer and the rich even richer, and all the sort of corruptions that are inherent to any kind of system. This is the way it always seems to work, sort of a pyramidal structure of wealth distribution where you got a small number of people who are really fortunate at the top, and then the bulk of people are the base of the pyramid that are just abjectly poor and fucked up, and it sucks. So you have it would seem to be that the new version of leftism is like, no, it's fine if only 10 people on planet Earth control 90% of the wealth, just so long as they offer proportional representation to gender, race, and sexual orientation. So just so long as half of them are women, and like 3 of them are black, and 3 others are Asian, and 1 is white, and a couple of them are gay, as long as that's the case amongst these 10 people who control 90% of the world's wealth, then it's fine. Then it's totally fine. The Pentagon can continue to like wage fucked up wars that killed thousands, if not millions, of people abroad for stupid, ridiculous military-industrial complex reasons and all that kind of bullshit for money and profit and greed and corruption. You can do all that. But just so long as the defense secretary is a woman, then it's noble and good and great. Like, you can continue to do all those policies. You can still continue to bomb people in other countries and do all this fucked up shit for money at home. But it's okay if you do all that stuff if, let's say, the defense secretary is a woman, or you can do all these fucked up Wall Street shit just so long as the Fed chairman, or just so long as the Treasury secretary is a woman. Then it's something for all the hipster progressive to like applaud over, and it's an inspiration to women. And first of all, I swear to God, if this fucking piece, I'm not gonna read it, but if this piece says some kind of shit about how like this is an inspiration to young girls, I'm gonna fucking explode. What young girl, what like 6-year-old girl looks at the fucking Secretary of the Treasury and is like inspired? No 6-year-old should even know who the Treasury Secretary is, let alone care any of. I mean, that's absolutely fucking absurd. So I swear to God, if Rachel Seagal fucking says anything about how this inspires young girls, I'm gonna fucking throw up. Anyway, so we're gonna go on to the next story here. What else we got here? The last one in the Washington Post is in 9 states, over 1 in 1,000 people have died of causes linked to coronavirus. In 9 states, over 1 in 1,000 people have died of causes linked to coronavirus. What does it mean, linked to coronavirus? Like, you either die of the coronavirus or you don't. So what is that? All right, so the subheadline says, South Dakota became the latest to hit this grim marker as the country surpassed 13 million known coronavirus cases after a Thanksgiving. Jesus Christ. Coronavirus after a Thanksgiving upended by the pandemic. You see, in this case, it would seem that upended is used in the correct fashion, because this means that Thanksgiving was drastically altered by the pandemic. So in this case, whoever this writer is, Marissa Laddie, that's a little interesting. Yeah, oh, maybe it's Iaddy. Maybe that letter at the start is an I. I mean, I thought it was an L, but a lowercase L, but I guess it's not. It's Marissa Iaddy and Hannah Knowles. Apparently, they do know how to use the word upended, and it looks like it's correct in this case. After a Thanksgiving upended by the pandemic and amid a Black Friday hampered by virus fears. I gotta say, I'm really fucking tempted to click on this article. I'm not gonna do it because that's against the rules. I'm not gonna read the thing because I understand that most people, when they read the news, they don't click on the shit. So all that really matters is the headline and the subheadline, because most of these articles don't get read. Believe me, I know this because I do click on a lot of these articles, and most of them, the shit that they write inside it, you're like, look, nobody was meant to read this. It's a little unclear to me what this means in 9 states, over 1 in 1,000. So is that like 1.1 in 1,000? I mean, I don't know, whatever. They could have just said that. But over 1 in 1,000 people have died of causes linked to coronavirus. I don't know what that means. like you got the coronavirus, but then like maybe it had like a lingering effect on some of your organs, like your heart or something, and then maybe you died of that. If that's the case, that's scary as fuck. And honestly, that should have been the fucking headline. You know, if it's like over 1 in 1,000 people had lingering effects from coronavirus, which then caused them to have heart attacks. Now they're dropping like flies. That should have been the fucking headline. You know what I mean? Not this ridiculously unclear over 1 in 1,000 people have died, you know, linked to coronavirus. You know, it's like, look, if you're saying what I think you're saying with this, then that's fucking terrifying, and you should have phrased your headline in a very different way to make the point. Let's move on to the next paper. We're going to go to the New York Times from now on, one of my favorite papers of all time. The top story here is Iran's top nuclear scientist killed in attack, state media say. Well, I gotta admit, that's a little interesting. That's the, you know, you have that as the top story on the New York Times, and the Washington Post on its front page never mentions that shit at all. Doesn't fucking say a goddamn thing about, you know, nuclear scientists in Iran dying. You know, like they've just got a whole bunch of shit about, you know, Trump being an asshole and fucking election stuff. And for some reason, they thought that Britain trying to swab all of Liverpool in a pilot of mass coronavirus testing, they thought that was the most fucking interesting thing. Whereas the New York Times went with Mohsen Fakhrizadeh getting killed in an ambush in northern Iran. So I'm sorry if I mispronounce that shit. You know what's actually crazy is I actually, believe it or not, is gonna sound really fucking crazy. I actually speak Arabic, which I know is different than Farsi, but at the same time, I should be able to pronounce this shit at least better than your average fucking guy. But I'm not gonna try and Arabicize this shit. So I'm gonna. Anyway, here we go. So Mohsen Fakhrizadeh. Fakhrizadeh. As if Mohsen. He's a good man. Was killed in an ambush in northern Iran. Iranian state media reported. Intelligence officials said Israel was behind the attack. And then it also has another headline here saying Iranian officials called it an act of terror and vowed to take revenge. Follow updates here. You know, I gotta say, it's a sad thing. It is a sad thing. Well, first of all, it's a sad thing the guy died. I mean, he was probably just some scientist. But it's a sad thing that I trust this headline more than I would, like, a headline in, like, a U.S. paper about a U.S., like, official or politician, right? Like, because on, like, I trust Iran's, essentially what I'm saying is that because this is just quoting Iran's state media, I'm trusting them more than I would trust the New York Times. You know, that like, that they say it was an attack that was, you know, orchestrated by Israel. I'm almost more likely to believe them than I am the New York Times. And how fucking sad is that? Although I will say this, I lived in Cairo, Egypt for a number of years. And one of the things that I learned there is that in that region of the world, anytime anything goes wrong, if a water main breaks in the middle of Cairo, if there's a car accident somewhere in Cairo, or anything happens, Israel is blamed as just a knee-jerk reaction. Anytime someone trips and falls on the sidewalk, fucking Israel did it. I shit you not. It's almost comical. Anytime you ride with, like, you know, because most of the talking I do when I was there with people was talking to cab drivers. You know, you always be chatting with the cab driver, which is sort of a good kind of example of sort of what your kind of common average dude thinks about stuff, and you're talking about to them and getting their opinions. And anytime any bad thing happens, no matter how big or small, Israel was behind it, and it's almost comical. So I don't know if that's the same case in Iran as it is here, and so it's just like that knee-jerk reaction, something bad happens in Israel. That could be it, or it could be legit. I have no idea. But to be perfectly honest, this is the type of story I'd actually like to see more of in the news, where it's, you know, it's of serious importance, because the conflict between Iran and Israel is obviously a very important one. You know, you've got nuclear weapons involved and all this kind of crazy stuff. So that's a very important story, and I'd like to see more stories like this in the news, because it is truly important, and I'd love to see some good reporting on it. And so good job to whoever the reporter is on this story. So anyway, so let's go to the next headline here. It says appeals court rejects Trump's election challenge in Pennsylvania. My God, I gotta say, I'm so happy. Like, if you recall, that was a headline in the Washington Post. Remember how the Washington Post said that, like, like what was the exact word it said? It said, "Oh, in a scathing opinion, the appeals court rejects." The New York Times, my God, they just said it normally. They just said the appeals court rejects Trump's election challenge in Pennsylvania. That's it. Like, they didn't put the scathing in there. I gotta say, the bar is low. It's very low, but I'm at least a little bit happy with the New York Times for not fucking doing that. But it turns out I spoke too soon, because I just started reading the subheadline as I was saying how great the New York Times is, and here's what it says. It says, "In a blistering decision." So apparently I was wrong. The main in bold headline, rejected any use of adjectives like scathing, but then just below it, it was the word blistering, which I got to admit is even stronger than scathing. It's actually a better, stronger adjective. So in a blistering decision, an appeals court ruled that the president could not stop or attempt to reverse the certification of the voting results. Okay, I've already said everything I need to say about the use of these adjectives in the headlines. Blistering, it's almost like initially I thought the New York Times had done a good job by, not having the adjective, and then they actually took it to the next level by using that. And it's like, Jesus Christ. All right, I spoke too soon. The next one is, empowered by an odds-defying win, Susan Collins is ready to deal. The senator from Maine emerged victorious from the toughest re-election battle of her career and is ready to play a crucial role in a divided Senate. I don't have anything to say about this one. I don't like the word empowered because I don't like how it's usually used. There's this weird obsession with the word power. When I open up my Bank of America app, instead, like, before I sign in, or actually right after I sign in, I get a message saying, "What would you like the power to do?" Like, I'd like to just see how much money's in my fucking account. What's this? What would I like the power to do? Go fuck yourself, okay? You know what I mean? Like, I'll tell you what I'd like. I'd like the power to you not charging me a monthly fee so that I can put my money in your fucking bank, right? Like, you're supposed to be paying me interest, right? That's the basic fucking premise of how a bank works, right? I give you money, you give me a tiny amount of interest, and then you take my money and loan it out to someone else and charge them a high amount of interest, and the difference between those two interests is where you make your profits, the simple way that, like, a way a bank is supposed to work. That's how it's supposed to work, but instead, somehow, not only do you not pay me interest anymore, you charge me, like, fucking $15 a month, like the same I pay for Netflix, just so that I can give you all of my fucking money so that you can then loan it out to people and make money. What the fuck is that? What would I like the power to do? I'd like the power to tell you to go fuck yourself, you motherfucking cunts. But other than that, I don't really have anything to say about the empowered win of odds defying of Susan Collins, and she's ready to deal. I don't know, fuck that shit. I went on a whole tangent there. We're gonna go on to just one more news bar, and this is gonna be the Huffington Post. Huffington Post now has a very similar vibe to the Daily Mail, which is really, really fucking sad. Anyway, so here we go. So, not to be outdone by the Washington Post or the New York Times, the Huffington Post has trumped them all with its headline, "Don denied again, obliterated in Pennsylvania. Quote, no merit," end quote. I gotta say, I was a little upset about New York Times, Washington Post using the words scathing and blistering, but HuffPost, they took it to the next level. He was obliterated, fucking obliterated. I've always loved the word obliterated. I think it's one of the most comical verbs in the English language. If you use it correctly, in the story Noble House by James Clavell, there's a line in the story where they talk about the main character Ian Dunross, and there's a fly buzzing around in his office, and somehow the way that it's worded is really well done, and it says that, he obliterated the fly with like a newspaper or something, sort of indicating that he sort of snapped it and just obliterated. Anyway, that's a very random tangent there, but I've always loved the word obliterated. And now Don denied again. So not only that, you've got an alliterative title here where you got Don denied. That was on purpose, I guarantee you, with the D and the D again. And then you've got, once again, this fucking long hyphen thing where you sort of separate out your clauses, within your sentence, which shouldn't be in a fucking, headline. That's too complex a grammatical kind of thing to put in a headline. But anyway, so Don denied again, obliterated in PA, i.e. Pennsylvania, and then no merit. I gotta admit, they did a great fucking job with that one, those fucking cocks. All right, so world news. We got the Iranian scientist linked to military nuclear program killed. Coronavirus, we have Fauci. Christmas and New Year's won't be, quote, any different than Thanksgiving. You could read that in a lot of different ways. I mean, does that mean that there will be a bunch of like mask and sort of social distancing guidelines or mandates or whatever else, for Christmas as well as Thanksgiving? I mean, you would certainly assume so, because Christmas is only a month away. So, like, I mean, if they're telling people to not visit with their families for Thanksgiving, or that they can only have less than 10 people in their house at any given time, or any of these other kinds of things, and they're literally telling people that they should wear masks in their own house while they're eating, and to just take the mask down between bites in their own house with their own fucking relatives. Which how could that possibly be safe? Constantly touching your mask like that? That sounds fucking crazy, dude. Like, it sounds like that would be so much worse than not wearing the mask at all. But that's just me. Just fucking me. Anyway, so, any different Thanksgiving? Whatever. I don't even know why that's a headline. Business. COVID-19 keeps Black Friday crowds thin. Shoppers shift to online. That's obviously a very big topic right now. Everything about the COVID-19 lockdown seems to be designed to shut down every single brick and mortar business on planet Earth and replace it with online businesses. Not just online businesses, but large online businesses like Amazon. And it seems to have, like everything else, like some people like to think that it's a conspiracy, right? Some people like to think that, like, this is, the conspiracy theorist would say, like, okay, this group of evil, like, elite globalists or something concocted COVID-19 in a lab, and they've put it out into the world so that they can consolidate their wealth and power and implement a great reset and all this kind of shit, right? And don't get me wrong, I love conspiracy theories. I do, and I listen to that stuff sometimes just for fun. I'm not entirely sure if I believe it, probably don't. But here's the thing, what I think actually happens is that it's just, when bad things happen, those who are in a position to take advantage of it will. So when you're rich and powerful, that puts you in a position to then take advantage of any crisis that occurs. So hence the phrase, never let a good crisis go to waste, right? Like, if you're in a position of power, whether that's because you're rich, because you're Jeff Bezos at Amazon, or because you're a president, or because you're a senior politician, or whatever it is, whenever there's a crisis, you can then use that crisis to either further your own agenda, or you can use it to amplify or solidify your power or your wealth or whatever it is. It's just that those who are in a position to take advantage of the problem are the ones that do, and do so in the best possible way. And therefore, if you're in a position, so if you're, at Jeff Bezos at Amazon or whatever else, you're in a position to take full advantage of the crisis to consolidate your wealth and power and take over and decimate all of you could obliterate all of your rivals, and you're in a position to do so, so you're going to do it. And that's exactly what's happening. And it's very sad. Although I will admit, I bought Christmas presents this year at Best Buy, and it's a weird thing when now suddenly you think to yourself, like, oh, I gotta throw Best Buy a little bit of business, because, like, they're the little guy now. Like, time was, not maybe 10 years ago, or, maybe even less, but either way, but 10 years ago, Best Buy was the giant evil chain that was putting mom and pop stores out of business with their, massive stores and their, low prices and all that kind of stuff that, obliterated the mom and pop businesses. They were like the electronics equivalent of what Barnes and Nobles were to, like, local small mom and pop bookstores. And that's who Best Buy was. But now suddenly they're like the little guy that you're like, oh God, I should just give them a little bit of business. It's so sad. Amazon's just taking away all their, it's a weird thing how, it's just weird how that shifts. Moving on to the next headline, and we're almost done here. U.S. coronavirus cases soar past 13 million as holiday season kicks off. All right. I mean, once again, you've always got that like, sensational language, soar. You could say rise or surpass. They surpassed 13. They rose past 13. You could say something like that, but no. They soared. They soared like an eagle over the 13 million mark. And first of all, what is it? What does it matter? If you told me that if the caseload was 12 million or 13 million or 14 million, it really wouldn't make any difference to me when I read this headline, right? What's the difference? Like, for some reason, we tend to like round numbers or numbers that are like divisible by 5. So like a 10, 15, 20, 25, etc. We tend to like numbers like that. Those are usually milestone numbers: 10 million cases, 20 million cases, whatever. But 13, I gotta admit, that's kind of a fucking random one. It's a random fucking number. Like you could just as easily have a headline here that says U.S. coronavirus cases soar past 12.34 million. 12.34. I mean, okay. How about 12.46 million? Like I don't fucking know. I mean, anyway. So that's a little weird. That sounds to me like they were desperate for a coronavirus headline, and this was the best they could come up with. And just now here, I'm seeing an ad. And this lets you know exactly who is reading the Huffington Post. There's an ad here for the new HBO original show Between the World and Me, which is the autobiography written by Ta-Nehisi Coates, a complete fucking moron who is a terrible fucking writer. I actually read part of his book, Between the World and Me. And I got to admit, here's the thing. I'm not going to lie to you. For whatever reason, I have trouble reading these days. I just end up falling asleep. Most books... It's like I can watch YouTube videos all day long. I could watch like videos about fucking tigers or something for like 18 hours straight until 4 a.m. and never even think about getting tired. And yet, if I start reading a book, within 5 minutes, I'm literally losing consciousness. Now, Ta-Nehisi Coates, on the other hand, when I started reading Between the World and Me, holy shit, like, his writing makes no sense whatsoever. It's one of those things that it's written, in some ways it's a work of absolute genius, because it's written in such a way that makes it seem like if you say to other people that you didn't understand it, you run the very real risk of looking stupid. Right? Because it's like, if someone says that they do understand it, that makes them seem very urbane and sophisticated and intellectual. And whereas if you admit that you're like, I read it and I just didn't understand it, well, clearly the only reason you didn't understand it is because you're stupid, right? And nobody wants to take that risk. So even if you read it and you say like, and you didn't understand anything that it said, when you're at your dinner party the next night, you're gonna be like, yeah, I read it. It was a fascinating book. Now it's very interesting. Oh yeah. And it makes great dinner party conversation. It's great. But then I think like the dirty little secret is that nobody understood what the fuck this book was saying. And if they thought they did, it was only because they were imprinting their own meanings onto it, like sort of in the way that you can do with a lot of like religious texts, where you can essentially just sort of means different things to different people and you can interpret it in 1,000 different ways. It's sort of like that. But that being said, I tried to read it and holy shit, it was not very good. So anyway, and it's also incredibly racist and bigoted and hateful and horrendous. But I could do a different video on that one later. So, and just one of those things. It's if a white guy wrote that book about any other race, especially black people, it would immediately be recognized for the racist piece of garbage that it is. But of course, if it's a black guy writing about white people, then suddenly it's transcendent intellectualism. And you're like, whoa, wait a minute. Racism is racism. I mean, I'm sorry to say it, but it is. It's like you can be black and still be racist against other people. Frequently, you'll see, sometimes you'll see, not frequently, but sometimes you'll see when black people, it's like they think they have a free pass, like to be racist against Asian people or Hispanic people or whatever else. Or maybe you're Hispanic and maybe you're racist against black people, or maybe you're Asian and you're racist against black people, which they are, by the way, not only in the United States, but in China and South Korea and stuff, etc. They have very, very low opinion of black people in countries like that. They have very low opinion of white people in Asian countries as well. They think of them as barbarians. So, I gotta say, people tend to be racist in all different colors and all different parts of the world, and it seems to be kind of hardwired into the human psyche, and it's something you want to not have, but anyway, that's a different fucking topic. So that's it for today on our headlines, and that's it. All right, so catch you next time, everybody, and yeah, see ya.